podcast. Welcome to the Almost Perfect Podcast, a celebration of fuck-ups, failures, and falling flat on your face. This is a podcast that believes you can learn from experience, but that experience doesn't have to be your own. Ha, I'm Bob Perfect, and I'm a functional fuck-up. Let's learn from somebody else's mistakes. And today we are learning from Henk van der Schyf. Now, Henk is a promoter, a booker, a venue owner, a restaurateur, and just an all-around rad motherfucker. I'm a big fan of Henk and his work. I've known him for a very long time. We've interacted in many different ways, and you're going to hear some very interesting stories that I even forgot about, because, I have forgotten a lot of things, thankfully. Unfortunately, other people remember them. So that's been an interesting part about doing this podcast, is hearing all the stories that other people remember about me. But yeah, we get into so many cool things, man. Henk is someone who has managed to make, organizing gigs a relatively sustainable business. And we chat about why it typically is not. It's very difficult. It's why, as some of you may know, I have organized a lot of gigs in my time, festivals, blah, 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 lots of different things. But I do it less these days just because the economics are not great, and the time investment, and it can be a lot. So I just do less now. I will actually be putting together the 5th birthday party for this podcast in September, so look out for that. That's going to be pretty fun. I need to figure out what I want to do for that, but that's going to be pretty cool. And we got the Point Waterfront Arts Festival, blah, 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 blah. But yeah, Henk and I get into quite a few cool things, man. We chat about Hotbox, which was this legendary space in Pretoria that he and a bunch of friends got together and made happen. We hear about the Hotbox Express, which was a train vibe that Henk used to hire and get people to go on and party all the way to music festivals and shit. And we hear about Park Acoustics, we hear about Mieliepop, we hear about a whole bunch of different things. And we get a lot of cool, actionable advice. We actually really, if you want to put on gigs, you get a lot of really good advice from this podcast. We also use it's kind of funny, to me, because Henk uses some industry terms like main market and urban, which means black, but obviously in your proposals and stuff like that, I don't know, brands prefer if you use euphemisms and stuff like that. And it's something I've always found funny, but there are quite a few different industry terms and jargon and stuff like that gets used, like KPIs, and I don't know what your journey is with all of this sort of stuff. I've had to learn it myself as time goes on. The more you interact with the industry and with the brands and with all that sort of stuff, you start to pick up how things work a bit, at least a little bit. And Henk seems to have done that very well, because we both come from the punk scene, in Durban. Actually, Henk was originally a Durbanite, but he moved to Joburg when he was 16. You'll hear from him, he'll tell you. And just doing stuff very haphazardly, very by the seat of our pants kind of thing for a long time. And he's someone who's actually really become a pro, become a professional, learned the lingo, learned the vibes, figured out how to get in where he needs to be and to make things work. And he shares some of those tips and tricks throughout this podcast. So I'm very excited for you to hear that. It's coming at you in just a little bit. Of course, I need to let you know that this podcast is brought to you by you, which means you can support it by going to patreon.com/almostperfect. And you can subscribe for as little as $1 a month. You get a newsletter, you get to hear about guests before they come on, you get to ask them questions if you want. There's quite a few different things there. You can go check that out for yourself. And we've also got merch. I've got t-shirts, you can check them out on the website. There's 150 around there, but doing a bit of a clearance sale vibe, so selling them for $100, and there's mostly just smalls and mediums left. I think there might be a large or two. Hit me up, we can chat. And I'm gonna hopefully get some new merch soon. Other than that, I'm DJing at Relatives tonight, a daily dosage. That's going to be fun. I'm playing soul and funk, and then maybe some new wave, and maybe some boom bap. We'll see. We'll see what the crowd vibes with. I've got a bunch of different stuff I've been playing with, so I'm excited for that. Of course, you can't come if you haven't already RSVP'd, because it's kind of a RSVP only sort of vibe. So unlucky if that's you. And lastly, yeah, we've got the Not Quite Right YouTube channel, which we're going to be posting videos to from today. But I'll chat to you about that later. Anyway, here comes the Almost Perfect podcast with Henk van der Schyf. So how are you living, Henk?
I'm good, and you, Bob?
Just good, eh?
Short
I'm pretty
and
decent. Sweet. Yeah, no long diatribe or anything there. No, life's good, it's difficult, it's blah, 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 blah. Nah, you're just good. That's good to hear. I imagine business is going well post-pandemic.
Business is interesting. Pandemic obviously was an interesting challenge, I think, for everyone. But I think it's one of those things where everybody reevaluated how they do business in the pandemic. It just so happens that I watched Moneyball last night again with Brad Pitt and Jonah Hill.
It's a process.
Yeah, but I mean, if you look at what he did and how he applied himself in the terms of baseball and, how he was buying players and stuff like that. I think it happened to all of us in it doesn't matter in what industry you were, things were turned upside down and you had to go back to the drawing board and see, where am I spending money? Where am I overspending money? Where am I spending my time on? What am I spending my time on? And how can I utilize that time better? So I mean, we're on the other side. It's the year 2023. It's 8:12. I won't say the date. Maybe this is only being broadcast in a month or two. But I mean, it's look at us. We're still standing here, and I'm standing on the other side, sort of. I think a better person, and I sort of hope other people also maybe had the same experience.
Yeah, it was I think a fairly transformative experience for everyone. But in the live events industry, whether you were a performer or an event organizer, the rug really got pulled from under everyone. But nowadays, it does seem like, I know there's a lot of financial issues in South Africa. A lot of people are struggling and aren't, making that much money, which also affects, stuff like live entertainment and that. So how have you found coming back into everything? How have you found the response? Or gigs as packed as they used to be? Are they better supported? What's the landscape looking like at the moment?
I think it's an interesting topic, and it's also a topic I'm sure that's been spoken about a lot, especially from, let's say, 2021 and then 2022, and then so I'd say probably a year and a half in now with no more restrictions.
Yeah.
Obviously, initially there was a good uptake where it felt like, look at me, I'm God again. All my stuff is selling out, and I'm the best promoter in the world. But then that sort of also fell away. I sort of been feeling that there's a lot of people that entered the promoting scene. Anything from club promoting, from the ground level up until major festival promoting. A lot of people, it's sort of been feeling, have entered the space. Sort of, I almost feel like they actually possibly made money somewhere else, and they're like, well, look, eventing is a good place to go make some more money, which is not the case. But and it sort of feels like there's been a lot of people sort of throwing money towards new events, which is sort of good in one way, because I'm always happy for artists to get good fees,
yeah,
and for suppliers and everyone like that. But the only thing I'm a bit sort of bummed about is it feels very much like everybody's doing exactly the same thing, the same artists, the same this, the same that. So I mean, it's a double-edged sword in terms of that, and how I feel. Yeah, so it's a difficult one for me to answer, but overall, I mean, one of the good things I believe happened was in 2009. If we had a party, let's say at a club, we charged $50 entrance. Just before the pandemic, you'd watch 3 good bands at a club, and you'd still pay $50 entrance.
Yeah, the entry at the Winston was $50 for at least 10 years.
Exactly, where you're paying 3 times the price for your black label for whatever, but we're going even backwards. Like there's even 30 rand shows and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So it's sort of with the limitations that came. I think it was quite cool that artists were in a position to actually start saying, well, I can anyway only have half the venue. I'm going to make it $100 or $150. So I think there was a sentiment of starting to know your worth and starting to pay what for a consumer to pay and support, especially when they didn't have the opportunity to see live music, comedy, or any form of art. But I think also people often quickly fall back to what they know, and I mean it's a bad you can either underbid or overbid. And
Yep.
I mean I'm always a person that coming from Pretoria, we just like to be fair. We don't like to take anybody for a ride. I want to sell you a concert ticket that you feel good about. I want you to go to the bar and feel like you got your money's worth. Like,
Yeah. Like you're not
um,
being ripped
and
off
again,
because a lot of bars, you're.
my mom would literally say, she said, listen, even at my restaurant, she'd say, listen, you guys aren't cheap, but you're not expensive. It's just a good feeling. And I think that's my approach in business as a whole. But I mean, other people, it's sort of a cancerous thing to go underbid as well, because you're actually just doing no one a favor. You literally just like dropping the standard of what people are used to paying and, fucking yourself over and fucking the industry over. But then you get the other side as well, where oaks are literally taking guys for a ride and, being ridiculous. So it's a fine balance. Everybody's got to find that balance themselves. I've got my opinion, but yeah, I mean, I guess if I'm selling these overpriced tickets and coining all that money and going to nice overseas holidays, who am I to bitch? Like, but that's not the case, and I'm a very proud holiday maker of Tsitsikamma region. So, yes.
I feel you there though, like, because even myself, like, as an events promoter, and especially in Durban, which is a lot like Pretoria in some ways, like just the organicness of the scene, and like also that people aren't necessarily as flush with money as they are in other places. So trying to find that balance of like the right ticket price is so tough because you obviously want to pack the place out as much as possible typically. And so a lower price does help with that, but then you're also limiting your budgets. You're limiting, what you can actually do with the event. And so I get you, man. Like, fucking that, it must be such a tough thing, especially with all the costs. So like something like Park Acoustics, which is one of your babies, is something that's pretty fucking expensive to put on, like, and to put on consistently. So how do you actually balance those sorts of things? Like, because obviously you're looking at artist fees, you're looking at stuff like equipment, sound, lighting, venue hire, all these different things. So how do you balance it?
I mean, first of all, I'd say this: Park Acoustics is absolutely the worst business model of organizing an event that we ever approached. But I mean, there was a gap in the market in the sense of, we went to Cape Town, we saw Kirstenbosch. I mean, that's a pretty cool event.
Yeah.
Obviously, it's not a jewel. It's you go watch one or two artists. There's no bar. You can bring your own alcohol. So we sort of got the inspiration from there, but sort of made it our own, building a whole day of entertainment, but allowing people to bring their own alcohol, but then also having a bar and food stands and stuff like that. But in reality, that concept did really well for us for about 5-6 years because it is a good value for money, because you're buying a
Yeah.
ticket. I mean, those days it was anyway ridiculous, like $60 maybe. Even in today's terms, it's a early bird would probably be about 200 rand. But considering you can pack your own picnic basket, you can bring in your own alcohol, like there you're saving how much money on the bar? You'd have to
Yeah.
just drink 4 beers to make
500 bucks
up.
easily.
Yeah. So it's an interesting business model that worked, I'd say, really well for us in the start because the uptake was so good. Because it was, especially being in Pretoria, there's not all these nice activities that you can do in perhaps in Durban or in Cape Town or along the coast, and that's maybe
Sure.
why in Pretoria and Joburg, like a lot of people, there's a big restaurant culture of just going out and because there's just not that many other nature activities to do. So it did really well for us, but like all brands, at some point, people sort of, I don't want to say get over it, but there's maybe something new that happens and stuff like that. So it's been an interesting one for us to stay relevant and to juggle the costs, because people can bring their own alcohol. There's an interesting thing that basically, in terms of certain, I'd say, not macro, but like medium-sized eventing, I'd say like basically all events actually run at a loss. And in reality, sponsorship is where your profit lies. Or at
So this
least,
is what I've been doing wrong this whole fucking time. No wonder I'm always just like, fuck, why is there no money?
no, it is. But I mean, again, it's also a tricky thing, because I mean, there are a lot of events and everybody's like gunning for the same pool of money, from the sponsors and stuff like that. So
Mm-hmm.
all I'm saying is that, in eventing, you often, break even and then sponsorship is like your profit. And then on top of that, let's say you didn't even break even and sponsorship didn't even cover it. Your bar is like your insurance policy. But,
Sure.
so a bit of an issue we've had with Park Acoustics, obviously, in the last couple of years is that, well, I mean, since forever, the fact that you bring in your own alcohol, I can't force a person to drink a certain spirit because, you can actually bring in anything, So although there's great support from alcohol sponsorships, it's not as much as you'd like where, you prohibit people from bringing in and actually forcing people to experience that product. And then on top of that, the fact that you bring in your own alcohol, also our bar spend is way less, So like I say, it's an interesting business model. Over the last 3 years, what we've done is we do it less, only 4 times a year instead of monthly, but then make it truly special, and make it that you don't want to miss out. But I mean, that's like everything in life, it's you adapt or die. And for us to have the brand, I mean, we've been going since 2010. So considering it's been going 13 years, I mean, that's longer than probably most other brands I can think of, in the live music
Well,
space. So,
like there aren't any other regular like day fest type things that have survived that long, and even some of the weekend festivals haven't survived that long. So it is a truly impressive feat.
it's an interesting space, and I mean, in a way, it's a bit dire, but again, also everything changes. It's like, let's say, everything changes, but I also feel everything will at the end be the same. Because everything goes in a circle almost. I feel so. Currently, I'd say there's sort of there's a wave of young kids being really into electronic music, and let's say as a band person, I love all music and I promote all music. But
Yeah.
as a band person, you can't go hate on the kids for like, these kids, they're not like we were back in our day and stuff like that. There's a wave where that's doing well. And then, obviously, if electronic music is doing well, I mean, let's do the math. Who's going to festivals? Young people,
Young people. Yeah.
students, and then maybe young working people. But I mean, as soon as people are getting babies, they're not going to festivals. They're retiring, or they'll go to one once in a blue moon.
Once a year.
So, the young people are sort of the bread and butter for a lot of live music events, unless in certain bigger cities where your demographics is big enough that there's a bunch of people that's maybe not married or people going through divorce or this or that, So it's just
Or
an
just
interesting
people who don't have kids and don't want kids and enjoy
exactly,
yeah.
which you
But
do
that is
find
a
maybe.
small section.
Yeah, but I mean, you do find that possibly in Joburg and Cape Town for sure. And then obviously overseas where it's just a numbers game and a lot more populous cities and stuff like that. What I was getting back to is, I mean, we were talking about, I'm proud of Park Acoustics still existing. I'm super proud of what Stu Berry is doing with Splashy Fin. I know you've had your 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 reservations about the festival in the past, but at the end, I mean, it's just cool what he's doing with it and just supporting live
I just
music.
wish his booking was better. That's like the moments, like it's cool that they're like, appealing to the lowest common denominator and they're like, appealing to the general audience and stuff. But my booking philosophy is typically like, give the masses what they want and then show them new shit. Like I think yours is kind of similar because looking at the way you've booked Park Acoustics over the years and how you book Mieliepop and various things, I think you find that balance really well. And it's one of the things I really respect about you is that you bring people in with your short straws and your majorzies and stuff like that, and then you introduce them to other younger, newer acts that they've never heard of before. I'm right there, right? That is part of your philosophy.
You know what? It's part of my dream philosophy, and it's something that was definitely part of my philosophy when I was younger with Park Acoustics. It's 100% my philosophy with Mieliepop. I mean, let's say to have Morena Naraba, Ukoi Koi this year, to have, a couple of those sort of, urban acts that not a lot of people know of, but musically they're out of this world. It's a priority for me to realize, okay, they're not in it. Like, I'm not booking them to sell tickets, but I'm booking them to blow people's minds and to broaden their horizons in terms of what they think about music and what is possible and this and that. But the irony is, going back to Park Acoustics, where if the pressure is on and you're doing less concerts, as humble and as pioneer thinking I'd like to think I am, in reality, I've got kids now and I need to put food on the table. And I've sort of just, when I was younger, I had a very big, I'm not saying it's a dreamer philosophy, but, I'm just saying that when you're younger, you're a bit more naive and
a bit more
there's nothing
idealistic.
wrong. Like, I'm very proud of what I did in the younger days of Park Acoustics. I wish I still could do it today. But, in reality, the pressure is on and I'm limited in terms of how diverse I can go versus, it's also just, it pains me of where the live music thing is, because it feels like everybody is just buying tickets for the same 6 live acts, and it's a broken system, because in a way I need to fix it, but in a way to fix it, people have to go to club shows for them, for the younger bands or the up and coming bands to build the biggest, net worth of support. And it's an interesting thing. It's an interesting ecosystem,
Yeah.
But to get back to, in the ideal world, absolutely want to push the boundaries and get people to experience different things. Still love Splashy Fan. But each to their own. Look at the Endless Days guys, and very, very bummed that they're also not currently carrying on. It's their festival. They can choose what the fuck they want. They're doing psych music,
Yeah, I love
and it works for them. You can go in there and say, well, where's your inclusivity or this or that? And they were called out once and they did sort of adjust and, have 1 or 2 extra bands of color or female acts. But in terms of where's your variety, shut the fuck up, man. It's my festival. I can do what the fuck I want, like go start your own festival.
That has been my approach to many things. It's just like, I don't just talk shit, I do also
I know. No, but Bob, the thing about you is I've known you for literally since 2011. And let's say this podcast, it's do what you want to do, or do what you want to do, what you love. And if you can't do what you love, do what you have to do what you love. And like in reality, it's like you were talking about COVID and stuff, but yeah, I do festivals. We've, me and my 3 business partners, we've got a restaurant in Mieliepop. We've got a venue in Pretoria CBD. Yeah, so, but in reality
so people can come visit you.
With Capital Craft in Mieliepop, it's African Beer Emporium ABE in Pretoria Central. And then, we do the festivals, and we've got, a small agency we started now as well, sort of doing more corporate eventing and stuff. But just in reality, it's like we're all hustling actually 4 or 5 jobs. And no one is just sitting down and like, well, what I'm doing is not working right now and fuck everyone else. Well, maybe when we were younger, but in reality, and that's the words of Fat Mike from NoFX, is just do what you love. And if you can't do what you love for a living, do what you have to do, but do what you love, And for me, looking at your persistence, and I'm saying that in the most beautiful way of, you've done what, over 200 podcasts? Is it
not quite well, it is with the solo ones, so I do like bonus episodes sometimes. With those, it's over 200, but it's 140 odd interviews.
But that's commitment, that is absolutely, and that's how you get somewhere, because people are also fucking lazy, people just think things must come to them. The success I've achieved in life is because I was young, taking risks, and willing to work hard, I was willing to work, I'm kidding you not, 85 hours a week, and that's what we did at a time. So yeah,
I guess people don't really know like just how much fucking festival organizing, especially like the week of, but even leading up to it, like all of the paperwork, all the organizing, all the phone calls, emails, fucking all of it is actually quite labor intensive, but especially on those festival weekends, like long festival weekends, like you don't sleep. You get like 4 hours sleep in 7 days. It's a lot. I mean, I know this from experience. So yeah, I can believe you.
We'll both be honest and say sometimes there are opportunities you can go sleep and then you don't choose to go do that, you know. So I mean, we
Well,
also
yeah.
punish ourselves. But I mean, I was also specifically referencing to doing eventing, but then also running a restaurant or a venue, you know, like doing daytime festival stuff and then the evenings being on the floor at the restaurant, you know. But I mean, yeah, and I mean, a festival itself, especially a weekend festival, I must say, I mean, we do plenty of day festivals in and around Gauteng, and then Mieliepop Festival, which happens in Mpumalanga. We bought into that festival in 2016, and it's the most beautiful venue. You know, it's out
Yeah.
of this world. I
It's
went to
my
that
favorite
festival.
festival, like straight up.
I mean, it's
I
mine as
fucking
well,
love it.
if I can say it so. But I went there in 2014, and I actually DJ'd like in the rave cave, and I was so fucking jealous. I was like literally walking around thinking like, fuck these guys. And then I was thinking maybe I can steal this festival from them or somehow like steal the grounds, you know? But I mean, I was also just super intoxicated. At the end, it just happens that we had a mutual friend, and he introduced me to the organizers, and they actually, yeah, they invited us to buy into the festival. But again, buying into that festival, I thought, you look at Opikopi or Slashy or, you know, this or that, you're like, this is like the most easy job in the world. All you do is book big bands, sell tickets, and fucking go to the bank and to cash your
Yeah,
money,
that's
you know?
super easy to do. Hey, very easy.
And
Both the
everybody,
booking
I,
bands and the
I
selling
promise
tickets.
you, I'm pretty sure everybody that's willing to listen to my voice have also been naive or dumb enough to be super intoxicated at Opikopi and do the math. 20,000 times 850 rand ticket. How much can Deftones cost, really? You know? Um, but
A lot more than you think.
yeah, no, it adds up. But that's the thing. When we went into doing Mieliepop, I was like, piece of cake, and it's my dream thing, you know, like starting from being a club promoter, let's say, to this, to doing a 1 day festival. You know, it's like sort of your dream thing is to have a weekend, almost a status thing, you know.
Yeah,
And
definitely.
I must say, the first 2 years of Mieliepop, we fucking lost money. We couldn't get it to break even, and it baffles my mind. But it's also, it's really difficult to convince people to go a whole weekend to whatever you're offering, and you know, to put on, let's say, 850 rand a festival ticket, then you know, the travel, the cost of possibly buying a tent or this or that, you know, it adds up. A festival weekend can
Can be
easily
five
be
grand.
6 5 6 grand, yeah, easy, you know. So it is a big ask, you know. I'm sort of like, me and you, we are in the industry, and I hate the word industry, but you know, we love live music, we love arts, we love comedy, you know, we love supporting, and we love putting up our own things, you know. But not everybody is like that, you know. A lot of people are actually pretty like on the fence, and then I mean, if there's critical mass of people interested and the hype is good enough, then they'll sign up. But like I say, it's just, in my experience, putting up a weekend festival is like, it's physically hard work, but also just selling those tickets is really, you know, it's a accomplishment if you break even. That's all I can say.
Yeah, especially if like, you know, you're a relatively unknown like entity. Like Mieliepop like is known amongst people who love music in South Africa, but it might not necessarily be on that Oppie or Rocking the Daisies level where it is ubiquitous, you know. But Rocking the Daisies got there probably quicker than most festivals, but stuff like Splashy Fan, like Oppie took them 10 years at least before like they
Mm,
were a thing that people really traveled for. And you are in Mpumalanga, like the venue is fucking gorgeous. Holy shit, it really is like everything. Like it's fucking heaven. Like I like I love it so much. But you know, flying to Joburg, driving to Mpumalanga, it is a commitment. So you are right there in that. Like it's one of those things where selling tickets, like you got to yeah, find the right people that like really love this kind of shit. Because there's also like there are people who don't even know about these things and would really love them. So how do you reach
mm.
those people?
Yeah, I must give you a small shout out. I was at the Winterfest that the guys from Tasers put up at the, I think everybody pronounces this venue wrong. Sognage. It's in Randburg in Stratham Park.
Oh
And
yeah,
it
that
was
was
so
with
fucking,
Mouse and all of them.
yeah, and it was so well attended. But I was like, I had this sense of pride because I remember reaching out to you and saying, well, what cool fucking bands are they from Durban? And then you put Mouse forward, and then they played Mieliepop, and then they played Park, and then, then now they've been booked for other shows. And I just had a moment of proudness, that's me and you, Bob. We did something.
That is one of the nicest feelings about this job, like the organizing side of things, because there's quite a few artists. Like I'm not gonna like name drop or anything, but like I gave them their first festival slots, or I booked their first gigs, or like conversations that happen behind closed doors that no one ever really knows about. Like you being like, hey, who should I book? And like bands like Black Math and Mouse and stuff like that. Like I've championed them for years, and now like you should check out Hoema is the next band I'm gonna put you on to because they fucking rock, and I
Well,
think you'll dig them.
I've with that, it's just a fine line because me and my good friend, we've been going on this rant where we'd like to say that we're lording, we're lords. We like, you have a good time at a party. People are looking at you and like, those guys are cool and they're having a good time. But it's like Icarus flying too close to the sun. Like you can lord, and then at some point you like start like. Let me ask this first. What's lord backwards?
Drool.
Droll. So at some point, then you start drolling, and then it's the same with be proud of like what you've done, what connections what you've done for other people. But
Yeah.
as good as that is, as soon as you start like name dropping, then you're starting to droll, and then you're like, oh my word, like so it's something that do it with proudness. And even me now, just in like I mean, I haven't spoken to you in ages, and it's a sincere thing.
Yeah.
The fact that you put Mouse onto my radar and that they performed at Mieliepop, But like you said, it's a fine like we're not going out and saying, well, listen, do you know what I did for this person and that person? And I mean, that's
Yeah,
just
it's like they owe me like their
yeah,
careers, bro. It's
yeah.
like fuck that. Like, nah, that's not why you do it. Like, it's just, like that's the thing. It's just like, and it's also, there's plenty of bands that I put on and never went anywhere. So it's like the success rate's actually probably a bit lower than. Like,
but I must say something that I really enjoy, and it's, I mean, I guess that's now since the social media age and the global village age and the internet age, is how a random interaction can change somebody's life, and this is a story I like telling is, I knew of BCUC, and I mean, they played at Park Acoustics, years ago already, but a friend of mine, and I mean, I might get a fact or two wrong, but a friend of mine, Janneke Berg, she was working for Alliance Francaise, which is just like the French Institute here in Joburg. She's from Pretoria.
yeah,
She's like the
we have
most
them in Durban
Afrikaans
too.
person. Yeah, so she's like the most Afrikaans person ever, but big South African music fan, and she, I mean, I might tell one or two things wrong, so I'm not stating these are facts, but overall the story is correct. That she went to France to a world music festival, and the musical director was just asking her hey, what are there any good bands? And she literally suggested BCUC, and that guy brought them over, and then apparently either him or somebody else quit their job, and now like at, if not still their manager, were their manager for a couple, for a good year or two, and opened all these doors in Europe and the world, and that's randomly a random girl, Afrikaans girl from Pretoria, that randomly in Paris just met a random guy and randomly said, go look at this band, and I mean, that's sort of the one cool thing is that, let's say with the Tasers that's got their sync deal on the Shameless TV show, it's
Yeah.
with Spotify. I mean, you can hate Spotify as much as you want, or streaming, or this or that. There are the opportunity of being picked up by some massive person, or going and opening for this band, which is quite exciting. I mean, what did you have to do in 1999? Write Barney Simon a letter and say, please look at my friend's band, which I actually did, and sent a tape of my brother's band, Sickle Point, who sucked. But but yeah, I mean,
But
it's
I mean, that's actually a pretty good point. Like, and that's something I think about a lot. But I also think there's way more competition now than there was back in the day. Because, like, we used to watch some pretty bad bands and think they were pretty good because there was no other like bands around. So I don't know. Like, I think it's a very tough game to get into at the moment, as much as there are opportunities. And like the Tasers have been around for quite a while, and like they racked up millions of like listens on Spotify, and they're not even that big in South Africa. Like they do pretty well, but most of their listens are from out of the country.
Of
So
course,
I think
completely, yeah.
that's an interesting thing for people to think about.
Well, I still it's like being, again, I hate the word industry, but being in the industry, I grew up with my parents not supporting what me and my brother does. My brother is my one business partner, and they didn't really support us, and I was really had resentment against them, and I was like, like, fuck you guys, can't you guys just be happy for us and support and this and that? And I mean, I think in due time and with enough success today, maybe when I started getting medical aid again on my own account, they sort of had more acceptance and stuff like that. But as much resentment I had towards them when I was younger, when my daughter was born, I was like, not a fuck are you becoming promoter or a musician. You're going to study law or something, And that's just this natural thing, because it's an industry that I'm sure we love, but I mean, it can be brutal. It's an industry of extreme highs and extreme lows. And for me, the reality is just the success rate is very low in terms of anything from promoting, being an artist, is that, like if you want to be a professional artist, this is your reality. You're probably going to have to give music lessons at one school, private school ideally, possibly play in a cover band that does corporates or weddings, and then as a third project, you can do what you want. That is just doesn't matter which, like, except
that is
for
how everyone's making it work.
Yeah, that's how everyone, and there's nothing wrong with that. Just as long as you don't have this naive idea of I'm becoming a rock star and I'm just going to do what I love. That's just, as long as you're aware of that's the life you're choosing, go live it. Go absolutely live it. But just be aware of it,
And the thing is, you can learn a lot of lessons by starting a band, and you can actually get into other aspects of the industry because of it. You can become a sound engineer, you can become, like various different other things that then support your like hobby. Because like, I mean, I just think of a band like what's their fucking name? The Beach Boys, which is like Starb and Tommy and all of them. And they all have jobs, they all like have jobs and then on the weekends play shows because they just fucking dig doing shows. I think they probably run at a loss because Tom's got to fly up all the time, and like I'll eventually chat to Richard on here soon. So that is the thing. Like you got to sometimes realize that, hey, like this isn't my job. Like this is my art, and like it can't be my job sometimes. Sometimes I actually just have to, accept that it is my passion. And like that's the thing for me with so many things. And like I'm grateful that I have got to that point where it's like, none of these things are like essentially my job. They're things that pay for themselves, which is cool. And then I work. So yeah, it is part of the vibe. One thing, speaking of this, and then we can get into like nostalgia vibes, because I really want to chat to you about like Hotbox and like you booking the fucking train down to fucking like festivals and stuff. But last bit of actionable advice for people looking to put on events and that. How do you approach sponsors? What are they looking for? Like what is the trick, I guess? Because it's obviously not very easy considering there are so many like events, trying to get sponsorship.
Yeah, I mean, I think the main thing is splitting it up. Are you an artist or are you a promoter? My advice is, if you're an artist, lots of places have, like, let's say a free music night, and they even have all right names performing for free. So your question is, where's this restaurant or place getting the money? So the answer is they're getting it from alcohol guys. They've got X amount that they can spend on sort of, it's sort of like a pouring deal, or, for X amount of branding in the shop that you can have this, So as an artist, it's if you're up and coming artist, I mean, it's almost impossible to land a sponsor, like obviously sponsors are going to put their money where there's momentum, where there's best reach, everybody's a business, everybody's got a boss, everybody's got key performance indicators, But as an artist, I'd say go to a place and sort of, I don't know, like have a look and see what signage is up and say, can't we get budget from this, and all you do is, cover sound or, or a small set fee, but I mean, I'm just going to put it out there. It's really difficult being an artist, One good thing maybe is like sort of indie brands, like smaller craft breweries and, gin distilleries and stuff like that sort of starts. But also it's just difficult. I'm not sure what to tell you. To get it, you need to grow your audience, and in reality, until you reach, until you don't have X amount of followers, and listens and this and that, then it's sort of, you have to ask the question, even if you were a brand, why would I support you? I would say work on your craft and just get followers, step one. In terms of being a promoter, again, it's difficult. Again, we all fighting for the same chunk of cake. All brands they've got, plans, what they stand for, who they align themselves, So you'll find that 1 year a brand's overseas directive within this country would be, we are here, we are working in the student space. For that reason, yes, it makes sense supporting live music. And then they might see, listen, the return on investment, they're not doing well, and they might have a whole, change of direction in terms of what they're supporting as a brand. I think it's important to identify what you're doing, where you fit in. It doesn't help you're a psych rock band and you go speak to, famous group, I don't know, Belvedere vodka or, Moët champagne. It's just not going to work. In the reality, it's also depends on what industry you're in. It's obviously an interesting take where, I mean, I assume a big chunk of your audience is sort of alternative, more band orientated. And it's, let's call a spade a spade. A lot of the brands, and let's say even like local beer brands, have diverted to more main market, because it's just, again, a numbers game. Where are they going to have the biggest impression and stuff like that? But then again, with that scope, like I mentioned, craft beer has been sort of on the rise. A brand like Devil Speak was 6 years ago completely a craft beer. Now it is sort of a commercial beer. Now you can get it in every single spa, Now you see an ad in between the Springbok halftime game, stuff like that, So Jack Black, that is a rock and roll beer brand, Elio is doing their designs for them, So now there's a good fit. So I think it's just important identifying what you're doing, what kind of event you're doing, where you fit in, and then, I mean, the best in, and it's something, because if you're a promoter, either you're doing your own bars, or you're probably either going into a venue that already exists, they're running the bar, keeping the money, and you keeping the door, So it's not a pretty deal, but the deal to get in is to convince this brand manager, this local rep you're talking to from this company, to sponsor you, 2 cases of whatever, vodka or brandy or this and that, or 10 cases of beer. You go and sell it at cost price to the venue, and they give you cash like that. That's because alcohol brands, the reps and stuff, they do sometimes have a stock allocation, not necessarily cash money, but they've got stock that they can book out for activations or promotions or this and that. But then my last piece of advice is also, I mean, if you're good enough, and some of the alcohol brands, they really do have cool guys working for them, so see where you fit in and become a friend of this guy, I don't want to say it's nepotism, but I mean, it's, I get a lot more support from people that's similar minded than me, and that I can have a beer with, and, that I can, that I see around, so, I mean, networking is still a very powerful tool, and getting to know these guys, and, not being obnoxious, drunk, and like, listen, you owe me something. It's something that, a good friend of mine, she was the brand manager for Jägermeister till a year ago. And she also said, like, people reach out and like are intoxicated and say, like, you owe, like, I'm doing all the work and you owe me money, So, I mean, just be humble and it's both parties needs each other, I think, and I mean, I'm only touching alcohol brands now because the reality is that any person listening here, that would be your entry point of getting money, I'm pretty sure the Stain brothers or from Rocking the Daisies aren't listening to my advice now. Yeah, I would say that's the approach. But yeah, rely on networking and just don't be a puss.
That is very, very helpful advice. Like all of that, like was super inside baseball. Like, and it's stuff that I think a lot of people don't know, like the reality of. And yeah, because I mean, I've done so many of those stock deals, bro. Like that is like how most of the sponsorship like stuff I've done has been. And yeah,
Yeah.
especially when we used to do stuff at the Winston, it was great because it'd be like, cool, I've got, a couple cases of Red Bull, got a couple bottles of like vodka, let's do a special and then yeah, get a cut of that, or just sell it to the bar.
But it's also then I don't understand like the alcohol reps sometimes they come with this. I don't understand how at all their mind can think like that, but they'll go and say, a case of beer I'm giving to you, you're selling it at the bar, for $30 a beer. So that equals approximately 750 Rand. So I'm giving you 750 Rand in sponsorship. And I'm like, where?
Your cost
No, you're
prices.
giving me at the cost price of this, and somebody else needs to make the profit. And even if I ran the bar myself, that's my bar profit. That's not your fucking profit you're giving me. That's like the most stupid, you know.
But everyone's gonna hustle, man. Like even them, like
Yeah,
they're gonna like be like, I'm giving you this much, and like, yeah, I get
yeah.
it.
So all I'm saying is we work off cost price. Yeah, that's that's all I'm saying.
Just give people that advice out there. Don't let the brand reps schnai you on that. Cool. So let's get nostalgic, bro. Hotbox is one of the like most legendary like things in South African music for people that have heard about it. So, like, especially if you read Mahala and like were part of that era. How did it all start?
Yeah, it's an interesting story. I would say it all started with growing up with not a lot of money, and my parents had a rule: you can get a 100 Rand Christmas gift. And I was at CD Warehouse at the age of 15, and I picked up this Punkorama DVD, which is from Epitaph Records.
Mm.
And growing up in Durban, and the punk scene was everything. It had like a bunch of music videos, and then it had the Epitaph story from Brett Gurwitz, who was the bass guitarist from Bad Religion. And that thing changed my life. It literally made me want to do what I want to do, which was initially being a rock star and running a recording studio and a record label. So when I was 16, I moved from Durban to Joburg, played in a couple of bands, and I started just doing random jobs wherever I could, just buying recording gear, like mixer and SM57, SM58, drum mics, and whatever I could, and started recording and came up with the name Hotbox Records. So I had like a website and signed like 3 high school bands where there's like photos and contact numbers if you wanted to book us. Not that we booked a single band, but yeah, I mean that's where it started. And then I went to varsity in Pretoria and sort of gave up on that and studied for 3 years. And in my third year, my brother he's actually 3 years older than me. And he was sort of like, he was sort of keen to do a gap year and stuff. And by chance, my grandmom had a house in Hatfield that became available for a commune. And he sort of said, listen, how about we revive this idea of doing a recording studio? And yeah, so I signed up for that. We turned the house into a commune. It happens that the house it was, all the houses around it was rezoned for business rights. So people weren't really living there. It was on 2 busy streets on Skuman and Pretoria Street. So, I mean, the street in front of the house, it's got like 5 lanes and it's a one way. So there's like these massive, it's the main road leaving from Pretoria CBD towards the N4 highway. So, I mean, it's got like
Just
these,
perfect location.
yeah, but I mean, in the evenings, you'd have like these 18, like in the days, you'd
Oh
have like these
yeah.
18-wheeler trucks just like move past. And like, it was a old suburban house. And my mom grew up in that house, but it was pretty, pretty, yeah, it was pretty,
Rundown.
what's the word? Yeah, it's not even run down, but it was just pretty industrial almost, I'd say,
Okay.
I had a
So
feeling of
like
that.
so I was thinking like perfect location for parties, not a great location for recording, I assume, just
No,
because of the
that's
trucks being
I was talking about the truck. I was just thinking of it, but I mean, the beauty of it is that we never got to the recording because basically we were 3 people that we all got sort of loans or hustled our way to get money, and we each put in 35,000 Rand to start this recording studio. We spent a lot of money on the soundproofing, the recording room and the control room. And then we sort of like, it was a priority for the house to also just entertain people. So we built the deck outside because we realized we're not going to have enough money for any gear anyway, you know? So we built this shitty fucking deck and decided to have a launch party in the backyard and sort of, let's make the money we need for the recording studio. And as all eventing story goes, we had the party and just lost more money. And yeah, but what happened was people were like, well, this is pretty fucking cool. And we saw opportunity to actually start hosting these parties. And I mean, the goal was still to raise money to get to the studio and get the studio made. But we would have a party, make money, then we'd lose that money. Then in the meantime, we were running the studio just as a rehearsal room, you know, and we had some success in the sense of a lot of bands were coming. It helped that we were doing shows, you know, so bands were even rehearsing so that they could be seen to come perform at the house parties we were doing.
Okay.
But I mean, then you'd make money here, then a valve of this amp blows, or, you know, this, the mixer packs up, or this, you know, so it just felt that we never got
spills
ahead.
A beer on something.
Yeah, completely, you know, and I mean, we were young, and even the parties we were hosting, we ran the bars like, yeah, I mean, it was illegal. At some parties we got liquor licenses, but you know, we wanted to have a good time. I mean, I was 20, you know, like, so now all of a sudden French one
So you're
Coke
drinking your profits.
Yeah. Well, not even that. I mean, I was hanging with the artists, and I really made a mission to, you know, to meet them. You know, it's a really powerful thing to host people in your grandmom's house or just the house you live in, you know, because now, let's say you're promoting, you're doing a show at the Winston, some band you love are coming, but you're just meeting them at the Winston. At best, you can have an after party somewhere, you know, but, you know, to host people at this house was truly powerful, you know, and it in a short time, we became a very desirable venue to play at just because it was unlike anything else. You know, it was almost like the Project X parties, you know, where it was literally up to 850 people in the backyard. And everyone is like, how is this possible? And even me, I'm like, I'm not sure how this is possible, but we're doing this, you know? So very quickly, all of the big bands specifically were asking, you know, can we come play here? Because they just heard it's different and it's a vibe. And I mean, we were doing, after losing money at the first couple of shows, we just immediately resorted to door deals, you know, and they would cover sound lighting, but they'd always make good money, you know, the minimum 500 people per party. So it was a win-win, you know, but we could definitely have run the bars better. And maybe if we ran it better, we could have probably got recording gear. So I always say we ran the most successful recording studio in the country that never recorded a song.
Yeah, fuck. Yeah. I mean, I never got to really experience that and always heard about it. But in Durban, we did some similar shit, but like different as well. Like I went through a house party where we charged entry at the door and stuff, but it was at this guy called Bruce's house. Cool guy. His dad was going away. He had the house. He was like, let's throw a party. I was like, let's throw a fucking party. But our trick was just to tell all the neighbors that it was a fundraiser for a surfing tour. And so nobody called the cops, and we got away with like, I think about 200 people at that party, which was like the most successful house party like I've done and been to.
And your friend just had to go on a lot of surf tours every time.
No, we only did that one once.
Oh,
like
okay, once. Okay.
yeah. But we did like, there was a cool like vibe where people would have bands at their house, you know, like I saw City Ball Mazes, I saw Go Go Bronco at people's
I remember
houses.
that, yeah.
It was such a sick era. But I wouldn't recommend doing that these days, people, because the popo like are not that kind.
And I mean, also just getting your house trashed, you know, that was not. It was a great party, but the next morning it was pretty fucking depressing, you know, just a million
cleanup,
cans of beer and yeah. But I mean, good times. I mean, I was listening to your podcast with Justin McGee, and he's forever. He's my man. I've got his surname tattooed on my back. You know, and I met him there. You know, I met him there at start of 2010, and you know, this hotshot photographer that got so fucked he like would lose his camera immediately, and with Roger Young, and I mean the two of them were just a pair. It was hilarious, and you're almost
It's
like,
chaotic.
are you allowed to be this debaucherous? But I immediately connected with them, just them coming from Durban, because after I moved to Joburg and then going to Pretoria, Durban's got a certain dissing culture where you diss your best friends, and it's just a sense of humor that not everybody always gets. So when I met
Sure.
them, they immediately were just family. And it happens literally the phone party was a Saturday, and then that Tuesday we got in a train to Ramfest, and I didn't even know
Well, I
that
was
they
about to
coming
ask.
west. Yeah, so I mean, we got into a train, and
The
that
Hotbox
train was
Express.
so I organized the train from Joburg.
That's the thing. You're leaving out the part of the story where you booked a fucking train.
Yeah, well, I booked half a train because what happened was we were half of the train on our way to Worcester to this middle festival, and then the other half of the train happened to be Carpe Diem, which was a family trip for recovering alcoholics and
Oh,
drug addicts.
fuck.
So they were
Fuck.
on their way to a rehab, and then we were on our way to go party, and it was the most bizarre, clash of minds,
I did not know that. I did not know
and
that.
there's pictures of Justin, in the rehab guys, compartment, like just having a jolt with them. And some of them came and peeked, sort of skimped for a beer or a drag of a Zol or something like that. But I mean, that was just such a like. I think over the past couple of years, there's so many times when such a bizarre thing happens, and you're just like, "What are the fucking odds?" Can you believe it that we on a train with these Carpe Diem people, and bless their souls, like they were great. They never complained about anything. So I'm very, I mean, it could have been the Bible Academy or something like that. Yeah, it was a good max. They were nice people, and
But
I hope
like,
all of them
so just
are recovering.
explain this to people though. Like, yeah, you booked a train and then sold tickets to people, being like, "Let's go to Ramfest."
Yeah, basically. I think I wanted to go to Ramfest, and then my business partner, Johan, he was also, I think he told me, listen, he knows of somebody,
Johan from
or it's a
Aso,
possible,
the
from
Kid of
Kid of
Doom.
Doom. Yeah. Yeah, so I think he sort of just said, listen, he planted the seed, and he was doing actually the electronic floor with his business partner Dom with Griet at Ramfest that year. So yeah, what happened was, I mean, keep in mind again, I'm 21, so I've got like no real cash, and to make this booking, you have to pay, a deposit at least, and the deposit was something like, let's say 20 grand, but I mean, not a chance I've got 20 grand, like it's literally, I don't even have 20 rand, I'm eating like toast and eggs for a living, But I would basically every morning rebook the booking because I'd lose it within 24 hours and start selling tickets. And then at some point I had enough money to pay the deposit, and then I would still be a risk because it's all good and well if you sell out your 40 tickets, but as soon as you don't sell out, if you only sell 36, then that ticket, you've already bought the 40 tickets, so it's eating into your profit. So it was a fine line and a pretty stressful operation to do, or just juggling the finances, But yeah, so we got on and partied for 2 days, and then got off in Worcester, and then partied there for 4 days, and then got into the train and partied again for 2 days. So it was I mean, I wouldn't do that now, and my body wouldn't be able to do it now. But there was a really, really, I mean, the thing about a train is you're going with 40 people, many of them you've never met, and you're sharing a very small space. All you know is we're going to a metal festival, and everybody is like-minded. So the friendships built on those trains were
A
some of the best
lifelong.
I still have, and it's truly like it's. I mean, I met, let's say, Skalk Besaidenout's wife, Mika. She was 17
Yeah,
years
Mika
old,
Paprika.
coming from Alberton. Like somehow her parents said she's allowed to go alone to a metal festival, and she was training with the facing the Gallows guys, So it's like
Yeah, old
it's like
Rick.
it's so bizarre, like the friendships you made, and like I say, it's forever because it was a sort of like-minded thing, So the chances were good wherever you met there, you'd run into more in your future life.
Yeah, speaking of that, and also mentioning Johan, like, yeah, I've got like lots of memories just from people staying at my house, like, well, my flat, my tiny little flat. And I once had Kid of Doom stay at my flat because the whole band and their like sound and lighting and a couple girls who I don't know what their involvement was, but they were there. And this is all just because like Ali beforehand, Ali from City Bowl is like, yo, like, do you mind if a couple of the Kid of Doom guys stay at your place? I'm like, yeah, sure, a couple of them, no stress. And it lands up, no, there's nowhere else for them to stay. It's it's just my place. So I've got people sleeping in the corridor, in the kitchen, and everything. And they went on to tell Blunt Magazine that it was the worst place they'd ever stayed. So,
After Hotbox, I had a small 2-sleeper apartment, and I mean, Batelier would stay there, and I think they're a 6-piece band with Christian
yeah.
School, 2 more guys, and then like Aaron, the manager, you know. So it's like 9 people in this apartment, and like, yeah, everybody's just on the floor, you know. But I mean, that's pretty thick of them to say that, though. Do you remember the day when I made the mistake of
my
asking
place
you
was a
to pick?
mess.
But do you remember the day when I made the mistake to ask you if you can pick me up at the airport? And then
did I forget to pick you up?
No. You sent a message with you naked, still 9 a.m. in the morning, drunk. I mean, you had a beer quart bottle in front of your penis at least, and then you sent mad love, and God bless his soul. What a nice guy.
Yes. Oh yes.
But I was like, I mean, note to self: never ask Bob for maybe not over the weekend. You know, I'm sure if it was a Tuesday morning, it would have been fine. You know. So in hindsight,
in that period of my life, like you're like, fuck, I was definitely off the rails, man. Like I didn't realize it at the time, but looking back, like in my 30s now, like yeah, that was because of cocaine and ecstasy and fucking just like after partying, and then the next night and just like, yeah, it was like excessive, and I think it did get in the way as well for myself, like with the profits and like with my reputation, which I think has improved quite a bit. But I think also people saw I'm a genuine guy. Like as crazy and wild and like fucked up as I can be, like I'm also a straight shooter. And yeah, like I'll be like, dog, I'm fucked up. I'm naked. Here, there's a quart bottle in front of my dick, but I'll send someone to get you. So
no, well, first of all, somebody did come, and second of all, I mean, it's 10 years ago. It was in December, sort of like festive season.
God, and I think that December in particular was like, that was a time. Let's just say that. Like, I don't even want to go back there because that was just too much. But I mean, yeah,
it's like you heard. I listened to you and McGee also talk about it, and it's not to sound old and farty, but in reality, if you want to achieve something in life, you can't have a bender every single weekend, especially with age and just how you physically feel,
Yeah, and mentally too. The depression, like Suicide Tuesday, is real.
But looking back, I still look back with those days in absolute.
I wouldn't change it for anything.
Yeah, but I'm also very happy where I am now.
Same. Like I feel the same way, where it's like I just mentally everything, I'm in a much healthier space, and I'm really grateful for it. I can do things a bit smarter these days.
A quick question from my side, because obviously I've been observing, and there's been funny enough a small exodus of, I know lots of people from Gauteng heads to Cape Town, and one of my petty things is are when they are failures in Cape Town and having to move back, within a couple of months. And then after they obviously said, fuck this, I'll never fucking come back to Joburg or Pretoria, or this place sucks. I always sort of enjoy that. And that's just a very childish part of mine. But I've been noticing a lot of people, some friends of mine even, that they've made some success and they've actually been heading to the Durban side. And I mean, for me growing up there as well, it's, let's say if you're into family, like Durban is a fucking sick place to live,
Yeah.
But I've just been wondering, like music-wise and stuff, how's things been going that side?
There's a new crop of like some bands coming up in that. So, like I don't dig too many of them yet, but like give them a couple of years and I think they'll get pretty good. But there's also some bands that like, I'll champion, like Hoema. Like I'll tell everyone, go watch Hoema. They're fucking great. They're like, I think, the next big thing in like alternative, music, at least out of KZN. And yeah, there's stuff happening, there's kids doing things, and like it's really cool to
Mm,
see that. It's really cool to see, like that it continues after you, because I don't do like music stuff as much. Like I'm working on the Point Waterfront Arts Festival with Gabby Peppers and help out a bit with suggesting stuff there. And like, I don't know, we're actually going to be discussing it tonight. So I'll figure out, like I'm doing the comedy side, but we'll see with everything else. But I'm stoked
mm,
that there are like, these youngsters actually taking the reins and actually putting on their own gigs. And there's venues like, it's kind of interesting. Like in Glenwood and stuff, there isn't, because yeah, the Winston's dead. But the death of the Winston, I think, actually has opened up, the DIY spirit a bit more, because there
mm,
isn't just that. Although there's like the Westward Warehouse, there's the Vern, there's like a few different spaces. They're just a bit further out, and I think they're actually attracting a whole different audience that might not have come all the way to the Winston. So I don't
mm,
know. It's actually kind of interesting to see at the moment. I don't know where it's all going to go. Like, it's Durban, so the 50 Rand tickets are still, in effect. But some people seem to make it work. Like, I know Ryan and that they've got their business model and they manage to, make their gigs work quite nicely. So, yeah, there's stuff happening. Like, I've been a little anti Durban, but it was mostly based on being broken up with and then feeling like an outsider in like my social scene. And now
mm.
that I'm dating someone else and I'm feeling good, like, I'm a bit more chilled with Durban.
But I mean, I think that's the one thing is, and again, it sort of feels stuff works in circles, but like when things are a bit dire, or it's almost like, let's say you don't have a great live space, when those DIY opportunities presents itself, that's like sort of the most golden opportunities, or memories, when a new scene is
Uh-huh.
born, and a new movement starts,
Yeah.
and it's sort of, hopefully that's the start again of somebody finally opening up another decent venue and this and that, but in those dark times, that's almost when like the best things, grow out of the ground.
Yeah, it is like quite reminiscent of the early days of like the punk scene when I was in it, and that when there would be gigs like everywhere, like at all, like you'd hire a sports club. I would do it. Like I would hire a sports club
Mm,
for like $500 and like the beers are 12 Rand and it's fucking amazing. Like, and you get sound in, you get the bands in, and like those used to be some of my favorite memories. So it is cool to see like the spirit of that like living on even without like our influence. Like a lot of the old punks
mm.
aren't here anymore. A lot of the old people doing that stuff aren't around, and the kids are just like taking the baton and running with it. So it's cool to see. We're going to head out now, so I'm going to ask you one final question, and it's a question I ask everybody. What is a big mistake that you've learned an important lesson from?
Oh, that's a really difficult one because I've made so many. Most important thing I've learned is how little I know about everything. And I know it's a cliche thing, but it's basically just
Okay, Green
when I
Day.
was young. Yeah, no, but I mean, just when I was young, and you achieve a certain form of success, it immediately goes to your head, and you really think that you're the shit, which is, I mean, normal, but it's
Damaging.
you actually just know fucking nothing, And every year I realize how little I know, and all I know is that I've got my opinion about things, and next year or tomorrow I could be proved wrong, and then my opinion will change. So I think what I've just learned is nothing is set in stone, and like don't go through life thinking, things are one way, Be ready, absolutely open to anybody changing your mind about everything, anything.
That is great advice. And yeah, similar vibes for me. I definitely had a bit of an ego when I was younger based on very little success. So
Yeah.
like I'm grateful to have been humbled by the world, and yeah, to have a very similar philosophy of like I've got my point of view, my opinions, but yeah, there's always room for that to change, and that's called growth. So, shut, bro. This has been
Okay.
so fucking cool. It's just cool to catch up with you, dude. Like, but also to like hear the details of your story, because I've known some of this stuff. I haven't known some of it. So thank you, bro. And also thank you for giving people and even myself, like actionable advice here, because yeah, these secrets of the trade aren't necessarily like apparent. It's not very easy to get this kind of information. So thank you very much.
Oh, thank you so much, Bob, for inviting me. I'll be honest, I was even a bit jealous. I see everybody on there, and I'm like, fuck, I wish the day comes that he
I've
invites
had
me.
you on my list for like a very long time, to be honest. I was just trying to figure out like when. But weirdly enough, like people were suggesting Felix Laband on Instagram, and I was like, oh, I should chat to Henk about getting in touch with Felix because you would know. And I was like, I should just chat to Henk. So yeah, and don't worry, I've got Felix's number. I'm gonna get in touch with him and hopefully get him on here soon.
Yeah, he's great. So definitely get him on. And yeah, have an awesome day. Have an awesome meeting tonight. Have an awesome, successful week. And I'll see you when I'm in Durban for a beer with McGee.
Oh, fuck yeah, that sounds good. So that was Henk. You enjoy that one? I definitely enjoyed that one, and I really appreciate just how honest he was and just how open he was, because like a lot of the stuff said there is stuff that probably gets said behind closed doors, but no one ever really knows. You never really know how the industry really works sometimes. So I feel like got to lift the curtain a bit there. And yeah, if you're a band or a young musician trying to get into the game, or even someone who wants to get into promoting, I think there was a lot of actionable advice there. And also, yeah, I think some of you probably learned a little bit about me that you didn't. Like, it's always interesting, like, with the stories from my past, because I have lived. I've definitely lived. I'm chilling now, but, like, I mean, I don't know. I don't know. I talk shit. Like, I still get up to the occasional bouts of debauchery. Like, I still know how to have a good time, it's just not as excessive as it used to be, and not as life ruining and career ruining and body ruining and brain ruining as it used to be. I mean, just not as, there's still some of that going on, but whatever, we live. What's that saying again? Every saint has a past and every sinner a future. So yeah, we all got stories, and we can all grow and change and, become closer to the people we want to be. Yeah, so that was that. That was the podcast. How you living? You good? You fill out your tax return and shit? You done that? Do you earn enough money to pay tax? What LSM are you? I'm trying to approach some advertisers and shit, or at least some sponsors, and I need to know what LSM you are. So give me that feedback. Let me know. Are you in the phase of your life where you can pay tax? Do you have an iPhone? What are the other things are there? Like, how many TVs do you have in your house? Yeah. Some of you probably don't know what the fuck I'm talking about, and others are just like, yeah, that fucking shit's whack. But whatever. Or you're like, yeah, the LSMs, that's how we market. So what do you mean? Like, everyone can be easily defined by the categories based on how much money they make and what appliances they have in their house. Never mind, some of that shit could have been given to you or handed down or whatever. But anyway, I don't even know what the fuck I'm saying with that, and I guess I'm gonna shut the fuck up about it. What do I have to tell you though? Vibes with the new girlfriend are going really well. We're having a great time. We're connecting, and I've been, yeah, it was unexpected, but I'm really fucking grateful for it. We've been having such a great time. We're watching Californication together. I'm rewatching that. She's watching it for the first time, but fucking Henk Moody, baby. That's what a story, what a tale. And she has no idea what she's in for when it comes to that show. We also watched The Outlaws together, and both of us recognize that I kind of am just Adam Devine's character in that movie. Like, I'm a ridiculous fucking person. And having that mirrored on screen was quite something. But it's very sweet, very romantic, and it's quite a fun movie, actually. I recommend you check it out. Like, it's a 3.5 out of 5 stars kind of movie, which is it's a pretty good grade. I laughed quite a bit. I thought it was pretty funny. Relatively unique scripts and stuff like that. They, for what it is, they did a good job. But yeah, dating's been cool. I'm digging it. and it has made me feel good. Like I mentioned in the podcast, like, yeah, I'm like in less of a rush to get out of Durban at the moment as I was like immediately post the breakup of my last long-term relationship. But I'm not gonna get into any of that now. But like, as I was just saying, I'm happy, things are good, things are a vibe, and yeah, keeping busy. We've been doing stuff with the Not Quite Right crew, like I mentioned at the beginning of the podcast. We have started a YouTube channel. We're going to be posting skits from today, so you can check that out. I'm going to put a link in the show notes, and it's been really fucking cool doing this whole like comedy co-op thing, because we're all taking on different roles, and everyone's just kind of working. Like, it's not... I'm so used to having to like crack the whip with people and like, yeah, be the boss and be like someone who's just like always chasing other people down, and like, I don't know, like I don't want that in my life anymore, like I'm too old, I'm too grown, and like it's really cool to work with people who are taking initiative, and like I'm handling the website and social media and various different like aspects of admin and shit like that. And then we've got like Vinny doing the shooting and editing, Liam's writing stuff, Tibbs is writing stuff, and then I just come in and I get to act. Like, it's pretty cool. Like, I don't even need to... I mean, I've got stuff that like I want to work on and write and, get made and shit like that, but just been focusing on other things at the moment. And so it's cool that things are running without me having to go like, hey guys, where's this? Hey guys, where's this? Let's do this. Like, it's... people are doing their own thing, and it's fucking cool. So the co-op thing's going well, and I guess that's everything I want to tell you for now before getting into the shout-outs. Patreon.com/almostperfect, titular titles here, etc, etc. So, shout-outs to Rousseau, the storage clerk of subtle heresies in the Lesser Overberg region; Russell Grant, the Far East correspondent; Karan Slemon, the almost perfect hedge fund manager; Neil Green, the key grip; Riz Ventura, the director of purchasing; Karan Chetty, our assistant to the regional manager; Stephen Oliver, our executive producer; and Kath Jenkin, the inevitable ruler of the universe and Queen Swifty. And yeah, that's that. That's a wrap, folks. I do also want to say a big thank you to Damian Root for the banging intro you hear each and every single week, and the sultry bad music you hear underneath you. Shout outs to you for listening all the way through to the end, and I will catch your relatives tonight, and then after that, I'll catch you on the flip side.